What's up everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from your average diesel heater video or burn chamber head video or whatever. I am going to be working on a snowblower. The title probably says something like that, so you're probably not very surprised. I have my neighbor's snowblower. It has been broken for some time. It looks like it's in pretty rough shape, so I might end up fixing more than one thing on it. But yeah, it won't turn the auger, so I'm going to split it in half and we'll take a look inside and see what's going on. I'm probably doing some Viver ultrasonic cleaner tests in the background, so that is going to be some noise. I might have to put some music over this footage, or I might have to do a lot of cutting and audio editing, and we'll see. Anyway, let's get into it. If you are a regular viewer of the Lowered Expectations channel and you've been following along with my diesel heater shenanigans, then you're going to want to stick around to the end of the video because I have a special message for you that includes a secret video. This snowblower, as I think I've already said, has an auger drive system. The easiest way to check anything on these snowblowers is to tip it up on end. If the manufacturer of your snowblower has done something stupid and made it so that you can't tip it up on end without draining a bunch of gas out or oil, well, get a new snowblower. This is how it's done. That is the easiest way to work on a snowblower. There is a cover up here that you can take off to inspect the drive belt for both the wheel drive and the auger drive, but this is going to give me a look at a few other things. You can see here somebody used a bolt in here. That's awesome. Yep. That's good. That's an alarm to remind me to let my cat in, even though he's already in. Okay, that's how easy the wheels come off. And then this piece comes off with a 5/16. This only has two, some of them have four, some of them will have them in the bottom. This one comes apart quite easily. Okay, what sort of a nasty mess do we have going on in here? Now that we have the bottom cover off and I have the camera pointed in the right direction, we can see everything inside of here. It's quite easy to see. One of the reasons why I took this cover off is because he was having some issues with the drive as well, and I wanted to get a look at that. Fortunately, the drive looks to be in pretty good shape. I think there's some bent linkage up here. I don't know if you guys can see up here now that I tilted the camera down, but there's a little bracket up here, and I think that it is bent, and that is why it's not shifting properly, because everything inside of here looks fairly good. A couple of things about under here: you don't want to use too much lubrication on anything, including the chains, because that lubrication will get on the friction wheel, and as the name friction wheel indicates, it operates by friction, and so if you get a bunch of oil on this, it's going to ruin your day. There is a rubber wheel here that grabs on an aluminum disc, and that is how the speed is controlled and how you also have reverse gear. This wheel slides back and forth. I'll try to do that here. Show you guys. You can see that sliding back and forth. In that position, we are at the furthest point out on the aluminum disc. That gives us our largest gear ratio, makes it go the fastest. The closer we get to the center, the slower it goes. The gear ratio is decreased. And then when we go to the other side, that is our reverse, because it will actually spin the wheel in the opposite direction. So, all that being said, the next thing to point out is that this auger housing is almost completely destroyed. This happens quite frequently because people neglect changing or even checking their scraper bar. The scraper bar on the snowblower acts basically as the shovel, scraping along the ground, picking up the snow and putting it into the auger where it can be then thrown away. If you don't replace the scraper bar frequently, it wears into the housing, and then instead of replacing a $20 or $30 or $40 scraper bar, you need to replace a several $100 housing and also pay for the labor that comes along with that. So fortunately, my neighbor has me as a neighbor, and I will be able to sort this out for him. But most people, by the time you wore this far into your housing, that would mean buying a new snowblower because this repair would be too expensive. As I was busy yammering on about things that we're not even concerned about in this video, I may have neglected to mention that the belt is derailed. Actually, I think I did mention it, but either way, the belt is derailed. It's probably derailed because a guide is either damaged, missing, misadjusted, or a bearing or bushing is bad. So what we're going to do now is actually put this cover back on. Actually, we'll leave it off, but we're going to put the wheels back on. We're going to put it upright, and then we are going to split the snowblower in half. I'll show you guys how to do that. It's quite easy. Okay, in order to take this cover off, there is a 3/8 bolt here ordinarily, and one on the other side. This plastic is broken, so I only need to take one off, except there is also, oh, I did this a couple of years ago, I think. Because that bolt was broken, I put a zip tie on there. There we go, that zip tie is released. Oh, that's a lot of gas coming out of there. Something happened. Is there a fuel valve on this? I don't think so. There is not. Okay, I'm gonna have to crimp the fuel line off. Apparently it got a piece of dirt or something when I tipped it. Gonna need the carburetor cleaned. All right, very least have the float bowl taken off and oh, take a look inside there. I love gas. It's awesome. All right, what we were trying to do is remove this bolt. And that will allow us to pull this cover off. You can quite clearly see now that the belt has derailed. And the pulley has some gross melty looking marks on it, which probably indicates that this pulley is bad. I could probably just force all this back together, but I'm not going to do it. I'm actually going to split it so that I can show you guys, for starters, how to split it, but also so that I can inspect everything a little bit more closely. Something that I will point out here that I saw a lot of people mess up when I worked at Sears, there is a lock nut here that actually holds the turning mechanism in place. And then there's a second nut that is just installed so that the spring has something to catch in between. People would always think that this nut was supposed to be tight on the spring, but what happens is once you tighten that nut on the spring, it breaks the spring steel. The spring steel wants to move around and it is too stiff in this place. It breaks the spring off and then you need to get a new spring. So don't tighten up that nut. It's not a problem. Remove this nut, pull up on this and the whole thing will come off. Put that nut back on there. Somebody thought that it needed a washer, so they put one on. Good on you. Then this will sit out of the way. The chute is kind of a pain in the butt because it's still connected to a cable, but I always just leave it connected. There is a bolt on this side, just like the one on the side that you can't see there, so I will redirect the camera. There is a bolt right here and a matching one on the other side. These can be a little bit tricky to get back in, but you'll get there. A good idea is to have something to actually set the handle on. So I'm going to back the camera up a little bit and show you guys what I mean. So when I take the next bolt out, this is going to split in half. This part of the snowblower is going to fall back, and the handles would go all the way until they touch the ground, but I have the bin there, which will stop that from happening, hopefully. Okay, there we have it. The snowblower is split in half. We have access to everything. You can see in there, we can see that the belt looks like it's seen a whole lot better days. There are no bolts on this particular one. There are no bolts on the bottom. There's just a bar with some hooks on the housing, which will lift off just like that. And now we can pull the belt off. This belt is absolutely destroyed. Now what we need to do is take a close look at everything here, the pulleys, the idler pulley, and all of these arms to see if anything's bent. Try to figure out why it is that the belt jumped off. I'm going to assume that the belt jumped off because the adjustment is way off, and these things are kind of notorious for doing this. The way these operate, this sits on there like that. And when you pull the arm to engage the auger, that happens. This pulley moves, which tightens the belt. This goes around the lower pulley over here that's just out of view. And when you pull this, it tightens the belt by moving this pulley. When you loosen it, they don't want the belt to jump off, so they have this belt guide here. But for some reason, they always make the belt guide so that it is miles away from the belt and doesn't do anything except damage the belt when it finally pops off. And as you can see, that's exactly what has happened here. Completely destroyed the belt and also damaged this pulley substantially. I might have one of these pulleys kicking around, but probably not. So that's going to mean ordering a piece, maybe trying to repair this, but very likely ordering a new pulley and a belt, and then we can get this all sorted out. But like I said earlier, there are some other things that are of a concern, not to do with the auger system, but to do with the drive system. One of the brackets is bent, and also, as I mentioned, the housing is quite damaged, as is the scraper bar. So, new scraper bar, some repairs to the housing, straighten up some linkage, do a little bit of lubrication in the right spots, and it should be good to go. Also, there is a hairpin missing from this arm, which is not surprising to me in the least. But this is the arm. I know you guys can't see it, but this arm is what controls the engagement for the wheel drive. Moves this. And that, fortunately, when it moves, is trying to push itself in instead of out. That's the only reason why it hasn't fallen out. But I'm going to get a cotter pin and put it in there because I noticed it and I can't leave it like that. Cotter pin in. Gravity would hold it in there, but I'll give it a little bend because why not? Even though I'm just temporarily putting this back together, I will show you guys the easy way to do this. The first easy way to do this is to make sure that you have something underneath the handles. Without that, this job becomes a whole lot more difficult. This is a lot easier without having the belt to deal with or the bolts. This one just has these hooks that hook onto a bar in here. So you simply line up those hooks and then you grab the snowblower. You can lift by the handle, but you can just grab it here and pull it together, and presto, just like that. I got that bolt started, which means it won't fall apart now. I can get this other one started. I'm just remembering that another problem with this is that the engine does not shut off when the key is removed. So that looks to be because somebody jammed something other than the key in the key switch. I think I might actually have one of these keys and key switches kicking around. I know I had some of them kicking around, but I used one on the go-mower project. I built a little go-kart out of a lawnmower, and I used it as used one of these switches as the key switch for that. So I may or may not have more of these kicking around. All they are is two contacts that are spring-loaded that touch together, and when you shove the key in, it pushes those contacts apart. You're not going to believe this. You're totally going to believe that. I just spilt my heat shrink. But inside of this container, I have a tractor seat safety switch, actually a couple of tractor seat safety switches, some sort of timer switch, tractor key switch, and sitting in the bottom, a key and key switch for this snowblower. And I do believe it is my last one. The last one in here anyway. I also have this key switch. Not sure what that's for. Anyway, in my drawer of goodies, I actually had a switch. So at some point somebody couldn't start this and they forced something in there and spread those things apart. And it worked, but then it wouldn't shut off. And this is how easy this is to install. You just push it in. And then you hook the wire up, which I'm going to wait to do because... No, I don't need to wait to do. This can all be put back together now. The carb I already cleaned off camera. All I need to do is remove the float bowl and drain a little bit of sediment out. And now I just need to put this back on here. We need a choke knob. They lost the choke knob somehow. I need to find a couple of screws for here so that we can reattach that. And then we're golden. This is supposed to have a bottom cover. The bottom cover has gone missing, so there's nothing I can do about that. I suppose I can look to order one, but he might have it kicking around in his garage or something. All right, folks, story time with Joel. I accidentally bought a snowblower. So after that last clip that you guys saw, I went in the house, tallied up what it would cost to repair the snowblower. And it wouldn't be a whole lot, but it did need a belt, a pulley. The scraper bar needed to be replaced because if it wasn't, it was going to completely destroy the housing, which would then destroy the auger and a bunch of other stuff. So it would probably have needed to be welded back together. But yeah, it needs a scraper bar and the housing needs to be replaced. I wasn't going to charge him for replacing the housing, but I'm not paying for a scraper bar for him. So I told him he needs a belt, a pulley, a scraper bar, and then the shear bolts in the auger and the impeller were not shear bolts. They were just bolts that were hammered in and bent over, and one of the wheel bolts was the same way. So it was a few dollars for those parts. Anyway, I told him the price, and he said he wasn't going to repair it and that he would just sell it. And I said, well, what I'll do is you can just run it into the ground. I'll put a new belt and a new pulley on it, and it won't be that expensive at all. I think it was like less than $80 for the pulley and the belt. And so I said, I'll just replace that stuff and you can run it into the ground. And he said, no, I'll just sell it. I said, well, if I had any money at all, I'm completely broke, but if I had any money at all, I'd offer you $100 for it. And he said, well, you take it and pay me when you're ready. And so now I own a snowblower. which turns out to be a pretty good deal for my neighbor because I'll be doing his sidewalk as well as the sidewalks of my other neighbors and the alleyway and all that. Because if you've got a snowblower like that, there's no sense firing it up and just doing in front of my house and my alleyway. That's just silly. So yeah, he gets out of doing maintenance, repairs, and having to actually snow blow his sidewalk. I'll be doing all that, so it actually works out. I think maybe that was the plan all along. But yeah, in all seriousness, I have a snowblower. I don't have the money to fix it. I am completely broke, so I don't have the money to buy a pulley or a belt or a scraper or the metal that is going to take to weld into the housing to repair it properly. And because it's mine, and I'm going to be very fussy about everything, I'm probably going to, pick over a bunch of other things. BJ's going to print me a 3D choke knob for it, so that's good. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see more random nonsense, then be sure to subscribe. If you're into diesel heaters, then this is definitely the channel for you. And if you want to see jet ski stuff, well, check out my other channel. It's the Joel Arsenault YouTube channel. And I think that's just about all I have to say. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. I hope I didn't hype it up too big and make a big fuss about nothing, but I have a unlisted video that is mostly unedited. It's going to be a pre-release of the video that I am publishing on Sunday about my burn chamber head, this beauty here. So it is a build video that doesn't have any music, doesn't have any voiceover, doesn't have any me jumping in the middle of it, just some machining noises and yeah, footage of this thing being made. If you're interested in that, link in the description below. Unlisted, so the only way you'll find it is by looking down there.